years old back mountain villages, still speaking their own languages, linking that to tourism experiences.
The newer areas which have become permit-free and easier to access are the unexplored areas of the Northeast, for those who would like to be with nature and experience the adventure tourism.
Gastronomy, you know, is part of our roots. You create memories, you create pictures, aromas.
More and more tourists like to meet our farmers, harvest with our farmers, to shake the hand that feeds you.
Start on top of the news. Global markets. Ahead of the game.
Time for this morning's big money stories.
Brian Sullivan, Worldwide Exchange on CNBC. Opening bell action.
Global markets under some pressure this morning.
Financials are the best performers right now.
Is there a risk here? Look at these stocks.
Squawk on the Street. Weeknights.
For the red shirts, for the yellow shirts, for many fight that we have already fight since I was young, and now I'm graduated. Nothing has changed. Nothing has been changed.
The younger generation want to see a change in, like, the right to speak in the right to the right of speech, like in media or anything, because sometimes we cannot fully speak about our own opinion in media, and sometimes those ideas got censored out.
I think they really needed the mechanism, the new idea, the new thought, the new method of how to run the economy in this country.
So at this early stage, it looks as though we are in for an extension of military rule, but the important point to bear in mind here is that although the military-backed party, the Palang Pracharat, has won the lion's share of the popular vote, the big question moving forward is actually how this translates into the composition of the 500-seat lower house. And that's really going to be a function of some potentially very fractious coalition politics, horse trading, jockeying for position, call it what you want. The political analysts at Eurasia Group say that this is an inconclusive outcome here, and we are looking at a hung parliament with no one party getting an outright majority in the lower house. So it comes down to coalition politics, and it could potentially mean gridlock for Thailand moving forward, and that's going to have implications, of course, for the markets. Let's just talk about the short-term and the medium-term implications of all of this for Thai assets and the broader economy and investor sentiment. Paul Gambles from MBMG is with me here. He's a seasoned Thai watcher. He's based here, and we're going to try and get some clarity on the way forward. Paul, very good to see you. So in the short term, this does mean an extension of military rule. That's going to be positive for the markets, but there are longer-term uncertainties here, surely.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with the phrase extension of military rule. Even, you know, when we've had elections, then the people who've headed up the, you know, whichever party has tended to win, have always had some connection to the military or other. So Thailand has never had a non-military ruler. There's always been military rule of some form or another. It's just more overt when it's the specifically sort of military-backed party. But I think, yes, we're seeing continuity, but the other thing that's important here is, you know, if you look at the Bangkok Post headline this morning, it says, you know, Prayut PM, very likely, but actually they could have printed that headline any time in the last few weeks or few months, because the system pretty much made that outcome inevitable. And so it's not really been so much of an election, a free election, as a kind of a referendum on the system, or almost like an examination on people's ability to vote. And, you know, the voters have got it right in terms of what the system expected them to do.
But the problem here is that this is almost a de facto legitimization of military rule here. And I'm wondering, at this point, given the criticism and given the expressions of irregularity and the crying foul in the electoral process on social media, etc., it's clear that the Thai electorate doesn't really accept this result, and there's going to be some sort of kickback against it. What sort of form is that going to take?
You're always going to get some part of the Thai electorate not accepting the result, whatever the result was. You know, you have to remember, Thailand isn't a functional democracy in the way that a lot of people in the West sort of perceive their own countries to be. It's still, you know, vestigial feudalism, and it's transitioning towards democracy. And that creates a really sort of fractious, divided political landscape. And so, you know, we've always had these different sort of regional interests represented as politics in Thailand. We've never had like a national politics, at least not before 2006 when Dr. Thaksin essentially figured out how to game that system. So we're still in that transition process. That's always going to leave some people unhappy because there are always going to be winners and losers. But I think what this does is it takes away a lot of the potential grounds for complaint. It takes away the idea that the system is so unfair, because if the party that got the largest number of votes ends up being the party that forms the government, that provides the PM, that takes away that leg of criticism.
So if you are holding Thai assets, what do we do? Do we sit back and wait for the dust to settle here and wait until it becomes clearer who exactly is going to govern and what the shape and the composition of this coalition is?
I think that what this does is it buys us some kind of short-term peace and quiet, because we are going to get a result that, yes, there are going to be complaints. You're seeing those on social media already. We are going to get some complaints. We are going to get unhappiness from the losers.
Are we going to get unrest?
I don't think so. I think what we're going to get in the short term is a sort of begrudging acceptance. However, that is likely to fester, and therefore I think the longer term outlook, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, who knows, I think the longer term outlook is more troubling, because this doesn't really answer any questions, and it couldn't. There's no result that we could have got out of this weekend that could have answered questions. So short term I think it's going to be positive and the markets are going to respond reasonably well. Long term the problems are unanswered.
How significant and how potentially destabilising could it be when you consider that the pro-Thaksin parties, Putai, for example, they won second place so far in terms of the vote count. They will have to form some sort of coalition with the military-led government. They are very, very uneasy bedfellows. Putai want to see a clean break from military rule. How is that going to work?
Well, I think what this result does, with such a strong PP showing for Prayut, what it does is it means that there's a real opportunity for some of the sort of Putai subsidiary parties to start defecting away from Putai towards PP now. So I think you'll see some of the smaller parties actually moving towards that coalition. They're not going to see their interests served by continuing to act as Putai subsidiaries. And so that, I think, is one of the real outcomes that actually help support stability, that we are going to see more and more people finding the PP acceptable because PP did so well in the polls. The real unanswered question at the moment, the real potential fly in the ointment, is what the Electoral Commission are going to say when they actually do convene to announce the results, because of course that was delayed last night. Nobody really knows why it was delayed, so it'll be really interesting what they see. I can't imagine that they're going to say anything that is going to cast doubt on a Prayut government. But until they actually come out with the announcement, confirm the results, until then there's still a few question marks.
And which way do you think this new Future Forward party is going to go? And they polled very strongly in this election.
Absolutely, and that was probably the most positive aspect for long-term Thai democracy, that we had a new party that was a clean break, very much opposed to the military, but also very much opposed to Putai and the corruption associated with that. So I think that a lot of people, particularly younger people, are saying actually we need a third way forwards. And if we're going to have any kind of mature democracy evolving in Thailand, it's probably got to come through movements like that. So, personally I'm very sad that Kun Abisit has resigned, because I've known him for many years, and I think he's tried to carry the torch for, genuine democracy in Thailand sort of pretty much on his own for a long period of time. But I think it's time for a new way, and I think Future Forward seem to be that way.
Paul, excellent. Thank you very much for that analysis. So the message seems to be, look, on the surface of it, there seems to be a degree of legitimacy and legitimising, if you will, of this military administration. They will have to form a coalition, but it is positive, and there is room for optimism in terms of this slow road towards a democratic transition and ultimately civilian rule in Thailand, that there is this emerging force in Thai politics that seems to have garnered a fair share of the vote. We're going to keep this conversation moving for you and just examine the economic implications and the risk of political gridlock and the way forward for Thai assets as we continue our coverage here in the aftermath of this historic election in Thailand. In the meantime, let me hand it back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much for that, Sri. Well, coming up, Trump's latest tweet on reversing North Korean sanctions causing diplomatic chaos. We're going to get more on the story with Sherry Kang right after this.
I'd like to donate these books.
Thank you very much.
Where do you get that book?
A man donated it.
Yes? I'm sorry, but I need to retrieve...
I believe you're looking for this.
No. Thank you so much.
Return the book.
This is Stephen. You probably know him better as that guy from work. But not anymore. Not since he decided to go big. That's because Stephen trades with TD Ameritrade. Now he can access more investing opportunities on the US markets anytime, anywhere. When you're ready to go big, you're ready to go TD Ameritrade.
Tuesday to Saturday, Kelly Evans connects investors to newsmakers, stirs up high-stakes debates, and digs behind the numbers. Strengthen your investing strategy on The Exchange, Tuesdays to Saturdays at 1 a.m.
During Melania Trump's UN speech today, she spoke out against bullying, and then her husband took the stage to give the rebuttal. How's everybody doing tonight? In a recent tweet, Ivanka Trump misattributed a quote from an American newspaper as a Chinese proverb, which is weird.